Hello everybody, welcome back. In this video, we shall talk about the bonus ideas for the quiz activity. Now, quiz is the first activity where we start getting into the logic of programming, right? Till now, we have done, for example, a comic, a dance studio, a basic drawing, right? So those require programming logic, but not as much as we start using that in the quiz activity because we start using logical conditions, right? So, a natural question is what can you do for bonus, right? So I thought this video might help. Before we get started, let me just set the ground rules once again. Remind you once again that bonus comes after basic. You always earn bonus. What you can do for bonus is almost endless, so there's really no limit to it. Of course, we will give you some ideas so that you have a direction. What earns bonus today may not earn bonus in future, right? This is important because the level goes up and so does the bonus criteria, right? Bonus is an opportunity for you to push yourself, try out new things and amaze everybody. However, please remember rule number one, which is that bonus comes after basic, right? So what are the basic things in the quiz activity? Well, it's really about learning to use the ask block, the ask and wait, how to process the answer, the if else condition, the operator, say join apple banana and so on and so forth, right? So I hope before you venture further towards the bonus activities, you are already very familiar with those concepts, right? So moving forward, I mean, what can we really do for bonus in quiz, right? As usual, it's actually endless, but here are some ideas which I can give you, I can share with you, so that you can probably work on those, right? So the first and foremost thing that I can think of, right, and probably the lowest lying fruit here, is to add a score, right? Now, you can add a score and you can even consider adding negative marking, right? So for example, if somebody answers a question wrongly, you might deduct a mark, right? So that's one simple thing you could do. It requires using variables, so you'll have to learn how to create variables, set them, change them, and so on and so forth, right? So of course we will learn this in the class later on, right? But this is something you could try, right? Next one also is, kind of building forward from the themes of animation and dance and so on and so forth. You could try building what we call an engaging quiz, right? A very engaging quiz, right? Now this can be done in multiple ways. uh, First thing that comes to my mind is the kind of questions you are asking, right? Now if somebody is asking, let's say for example, what is 2 plus 2 or what is 3 plus 3, it's correct, I mean it meets the basic criteria, but there could be much more engaging questions. And then, for example, you could create, say, some kind of word jumbles with your questions, right? Or you could create some kind of, a question where you have to recognize, let's say, a picture, right? So you show a picture and the person has to recognize what this picture is all about, right? Again, it's your imagination, but the questions could be quite innovative, right? Similarly, what does a sprite do once it figures out that you have given a wrong answer or a right answer, right? So simplest, of course, is to say, well done, or come on, you could do better. But then sprite could probably, dance, or maybe it can move something, right? It can move to a new location or something like that, right? So there's, again, combine those elements of, let's say, dance and drawing, probably, to kind of magnify the sprite celebration, right? Finally, you can give hints, right? So for example, you could give hints maybe in the backdrop, right? So probably, you ask a question and your backdrop is made in such a way that there's a hint hidden in there, right? Or you can even explicitly give a, hint by using the say block or the, the think block, let's say. So that will again make a very engaging quiz, right? And it's fun to play because, you start engaging the user into the quiz, right? So this is a second idea. The third idea could be a kind of extension of this. You could create what we call user interaction. So for example, you can create buttons for user to choose, for example, what topic he or she wants to play, or perhaps the difficulty level. So maybe if you pick up one topic, maybe let's say sports, so you can say easy questions, medium level questions, and hard questions, right? Now this will require you to learn how to control, the flow of the program using button clicking. We will show you this in a future class, but you could try that today, and that will also make it quite nice, right? So it becomes again an engaging quiz, right? Now the next three ones are really a little bit on the harder side, but nonetheless, for the sake of completion and also to whet your curiosity, let me just cover them here, right? So you could use sprites as options for your answer. Now, what do I mean by that, right? Typically, in a multiple choice question, we just write in the question A, B, C, or D, right? Now, you could instead use sprites, right? So Scratch comes up with these sprites, for example, which are A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You could use those sprites as your answer, and when the user clicks that sprite which is the correct answer, he's reminded that look, you answered correctly, right? But mind you, this is not that easy. This will require you to carefully control which sprite is getting clicked, and you have to use what I call the lists to maintain a list of correct answers, right? There are simpler versions of this which will not be as effective, but you could certainly try, and we will give you some ideas in the description section of this video. So please look at the description. You will get some ideas from what you could do, right? Next, you could consider putting questions in a random order, right? So remember in the quiz that we had in the class, every time I play this quiz, I get questions in the same exact order, right? Now you might wonder, what could I do to randomize these questions, right? So probably question number one sometimes appear at question number three, question number three appears at question number five sometimes at question number two, and so on and so forth, right? Again, this requires you to use lists. I mean, that's one simple implementation. There's also an implementation possible using some complicated broadcasts, but list is probably a clean implementation of this, right? So this is a little bit hard, but it's doable, right? You can, if you think hard, you explore, you can do this, right? And finally, you could try creating a timeout, right? Now this is actually quite hard, right? And the reason it is hard is because remember the block that we have is called ask and wait, right? So it really keeps waiting for the user to answer for how much ever long the user wants, right? So if you want to break that flow, right, so it requires much more thinking and many more concepts that you probably have learned till now. Nonetheless, I'm putting a project in the description section. You can take a look, and if you feel up to it, you can try it, but I would not recommend this particular bonus right now. Before, I would say there are many more simpler options available in, say, these 4 or 5 points, right? So go for those, and if you're really, really confident and if you really want to explore this further, then you could probably try creating a timeout. It's a little bit hard, right? So let's just kind of revise, see in context of our program, what do these bonus ideas really mean and how can we do that, right? So first point that I gave you is to add a score, and that's really I would say the simplest thing that one could think of, right, when it comes to a quiz question, right? And now, how do you add a score? Well, you have to go and create a variable, right? So you go to variables, you have to create a variable called score, and then you have to use set and change score to to do whatever you want, right? So like I said, you can have a positive score, you can have a negative score, right? There are many projects out there, including the projects that we've shown in the class, including some projects which are in the description which implement this. So you should probably look at it in your own time, right? So and get some ideas from there. Next is about engaging quiz, right? Now this one is really up to your imagination. So like I said, here I'm asking a very simple question: what is the capital of India, right? But the same question could be asked in a more engaging fashion. For example, I could say, okay, tell me this city's name, and I can give a hint. Well, this is the capital of India, right? And I could jumble up the words of the letter, let's say, of the letters of the word Delhi, right? Or I could show in the backdrop a map of India and say, tell me this country's capital, right? So there are many ways you can make the same question much more engaging, right? And it will exercise your programming skills, your innovation, your imagination, and it will become much more engaging, right? Similarly, when I do answer it correctly, maybe the sprite could do a somersault, or maybe the sprite could dance. You could use next costume, switch costume, right? Maybe sprite can move to another location and ask a next question, and so on and so forth, right? Similarly, sprite might give me some hints, right? So for example, if I ask what is the capital of India, maybe I can show something from Delhi over in the screen as well, right? And I can say, look, hint is available to you, right? And so on. So there's a project we are putting in the description where the student has really implemented hints quite beautifully, right? So you should take a look at that, and I think your quiz can be quite engaging. Then I said that you could add different options for the user. And the way you could do that really is that you have to create, buttons. For example, you go choose a sprite, and there are these button sprites, right? So for example, you take this button, say this kind of buttons, right? So now you can get one of these and rename it, say easy. So how do you rename? Just go and change the costume, call it, say, put a text here, easy, or medium or hard, right? And when the user clicks this, a different set of questions come, right? So you have to then use when this sprite clicked. Those things are available in the event section. So for example, when this sprite is clicked, or there are some other methods as well, and we will, like I said, cover this in a later class, right? So you could, but this is a powerful way of making your quiz quite engaging and quite interesting, right? Then you can use, and this is a little bit hard, right? It starts getting a bit hard from here, but I thought it's good for me to tell you so that you push yourself a little bit, right? So you could start using sprites themselves as possible answers, right? Again, we are putting a project in the description section. You can take a look at that. What you could do, for example, if your question has answers, say A, B, C, and D, so I could use, let's say, I have this alphabets. Yeah, for example, this, right? So I can use A, maybe A here, B, C, and D, right? And the user is supposed to click this answer to get the correct answer, right? So now this gets quite complicated actually. It's not that straightforward, but this is something you could look from the project that's available to you and try implementing. Uh, Next, I said that you could basically make questions that come in a random order, right? Now, again, the way to do this would be to create a list of questions and using that list to put out questions in a random fashion, right? So the way you create lists is go to variables and say make a list, right? But again, mind you, list has lots and lots of complications, lots and lots of features and functions, which we cover in the advanced level. We do not cover it now. However, if you do try it, that's a bonus right now, right? So using a list correctly will definitely be a bonus, right? And finally, I told you that you could use a timeout. Right now, the reason it's hard, right, is because you notice, when I ask this question, what's the capital of India, and wait, right, the way this thing is implemented in Scratch, it's very difficult for me to now break this loop, right? So if I say that I have only 1 second to answer this question, it turns out actually this is not all that easy, right? So we have to somehow go and stop this script, which means that we have to know how to stop scripts in what conditions, and then there's a lot of control that goes along with it, right? But nonetheless, I have put a project that I have a sample project that you can look at if you are interested. Uh, and that's, I would say, a pretty hard bonus, right? There are many more greener pastures available to you in the previous ideas that I mentioned, and you should probably try those, right? So with this, let me wrap this video up. I hope you will enjoy this activity. Like I said, this is the first foray into the world of logic. Uh, so, get the fundamentals in place, enjoy the process of building your project, be proud about it. It's not easy. We feel very good seeing good projects, and we are going to learn from them. So take a lot of pride in what you're doing and really enjoy the process. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you.